Good morning, good afternoon, good night. I don't know, but eighth grade, it's good to see you. It's Miss Salvatore here, just with a reading and going over the objective and the skill a little bit more in depth. So I hope that these videos are helpful for you. If you do need help, I want you to follow along as I read the passage that is assigned for each day and how to go back and find that textual evidence. So let's just get into it. Let's get started. Today, our objective and what we are going to do is all of you, students, will be able to properly answer 3 out of 3 textually dependent questions in the mystery ingredient. The mystery ingredient is the text. It is in your PSSA coach book if you have the hard copy. It is page 55. I'm going to write it here. Sorry, this is messy. Page 55. And we know that we are working on finding textual evidence to support our answers. And before we read, we want to make sure that we're looking at the page. I'm going to pull it up here, but make sure that you are reading the directions. Directions are important. Okay, it's going to tell you what they want you to do. So I'll pull this up and I'll just say that the directions say, use the reading guide to help you understand the passage. Okay, so when I pull this up, you're going to see exactly what the reading guide is. So here we go. Here is page 55, the start of the text that we are going to read today. Good catch, Miss Salvatore. All right. The mystery ingredient. Now it wants you to use the reading guide to help you understand the passage. So I want everyone to pay close attention. Right here is the reading guide. So let's read that to make sure we know what this is here for. If there's a tool that is going to help us, we want to make sure that we understand how to use it. So it says, if I can make this a little bit bigger, but I don't think I can. As you read, consider the kind of language the author of the story uses. Does the dialogue sound like a conversation you or someone you know might have? How does Leona work toward her goal of being a chef? And what do you learn about Leona in this section? So by the title and by the quick reading guide, we know that somebody is learning how to maybe cook and what you need for a chef. And then they want you to think about putting yourself in their position, listen to the conversation, read the conversation they're having, and see if it sounds like something you, a friend, or a family member might be able to associate with, if it's something. So this is as big as I can make it. Let me just see 1 second. If I can make it a little bit bigger. All right, here we go. The mystery ingredient. Please follow along. Write down any words you don't know. Remember to ask me and we will figure it out. This passage is a little bit longer. Okay, it's almost 3 full pages, but we will read it and then you guys will have the chance to answer those 3 questions in class, and we want 3 out of 3 correct, being able to go back, find the answer, and support your answer. So here we go. The mystery ingredient. Daniel Fiore, Leona, had heard that name when she was a teenager, helping her grandmother bake a braided loaf of bread swirled with cinnamon. As the bread filled the kitchen with its irresistibly sweet scent, Leona and her grandmother switched on the TV to watch Daniel Fiore bake his own beautiful creation. Back then, not too many people knew his name. He had just graduated from culinary school at the top of his class, and he'd landed a small TV show on a local channel in Leona's hometown. Leona's grandmother, who was quite a cook herself, though, she'd never had the time or the funds to go to culinary school, pointed at the TV. This young man is so special, she told Leona. He's never steered me wrong in the kitchen. In fact, this bread we're baking is one of his recipes. Cooking with her grandmother was one of Leona's favorite things to do, and soon Daniel Fiore was her favorite chef as well. Together, she and her grandmother watched proudly as he became more and more successful. By the time Leona graduated high school with plans to go to culinary school for college, Chef Fiore's restaurants were packed every night. His cookbooks were bestsellers, and his latest TV show was broadcast worldwide. Leona's secret dream was that if she worked hard enough, maybe one day she could follow in Chef Fiore's footsteps. A few years after graduating from culinary school, Leona was an apprentice in a kitchen in Italy, learning how to cut homemade ravioli into perfectly shaped squares. On a tiny TV in the corner, an Italian news station played, and Leona was surprised when Daniel Fiore's face popped up. She was struggling to follow the newscaster's Italian when suddenly the camera panned to a video of Chef Fiore making a statement. Due to an ongoing illness, I've decided it's time for me to give up my cooking empire. I have no choice but to step out of the spotlight to take care of myself. It hurts, but I know it's the right decision for my family and me. Leona froze in shock, her ravioli neglected, as Chef Fiore continued. So we want to go back to this reading guide while I pull up the second page, turn the page, but how does Leona work towards the goal of being a chef? So if you go to this paragraph here, it gives you the textual evidence that you need to answer that question, if that was a question. Okay, so she followed this Daniel Fiore, chef, and then she wanted to follow in his footsteps. Okay, and then right here it says a few years after graduating from culinary school, so we know that Leona went to culinary school. She was an apprentice in a kitchen in Italy. That means that you train under someone, right? So in a lot of jobs, you have to apprentice or train with somebody. So we knew that. So those are the steps she took towards becoming a chef herself. Okay, not only did she follow her favorite chef, and we know from this paragraph, but right here it tells us some of the steps she personally took. Okay, let me clear that. Okay, what do you learn about Leona in this section? So from really the whole page, there's a lot that you could learn, but she follows a chef. She looks up to this chef that is a role model. She ends up trying to follow in his footsteps and be as good as he is, right? And then we also learned something here at the very bottom, how she is reacting to the news that Chef Fiore is taking a step back and will no longer be a chef anymore. Okay, so we can kind of describe her professionally, but also we're getting a glimpse into how she truly feels as a person. Okay, so let me clear this and pull up page 2. So if you have the hard copy, you're going to turn the page now. All right, page 2, this is page 56. And again, we want to make sure that we're really looking at this reading guide so that we can follow along, maybe think about questions that they're going to ask us and how we are going to piece it together. It says, how does the author structure the plot? How does he or she present the conflict? And then here, notice how Leona acts differently from the other contestants, okay? So we're gonna do a little bit of comparing and contrasting. We're gonna examine the plot, and then we also wanna look at the conflict that is about to occur. Okay. Of course, I won't be turning my back on all of my hard work. Next month, I'll sponsor a baking contest. The winner will take over my show and run my restaurants. Leona knew what she had to do. It involved an entry form, a plane ticket, and a once-in-a-lifetime shot at her dream. So we also know that she is determined. This is what she needs to do to show that she is serious. 1 month later, she stood in a TV studio with 10 other contestants. They had all made it through the first round, and this time they would bake something on Chef Fiore's cooking show. Leona watched a TV interviewer go from contestant to contestant. The man next to her stood up straight and faced the camera head on. Nervous? No way. I've been training for years and I know I've got this. Leona's hands were clammy. Her mouth was dry as cotton. How could this guy be so confident when she felt like fainting? When the microphone reached her, she could barely squeak out a word. I'll try my best, she whispered. After the interviews were over, Chef Fiore walked on stage with a mischievous glint in his eye. From behind his back, he pulled a bottle of clear liquid. This bottle, he said dramatically, contains your mystery ingredient. You can bake whatever you want, but you must use this. What is it? Another contestant inquired. Chef's secret. Chef Fiore replied as he handed the first bottle to Leona. Leona took her place at her private cooking station. She was relieved that from back here she couldn't see the other contestants. More important, they couldn't see her and make her nervous. The mystery ingredient perplexed Leona, but she didn't have time to think about it. Instead, she got to work on the recipe she'd planned. She would bake a flaky French pastry with roasted strawberries. It was one of her favorites, and it always came out great. Leona baked her pastry in the usual way, only this time she folded the mystery ingredient into the sugary dough. Then she popped her creation into the oven and waited. 20 minutes later, Leona opened the oven to find a disaster. Her pastry, which was usually light and flaky, was a flat, burnt pancake. The roasted strawberries had shriveled like raisins and turned brown. It even smelled funny. Oh no, Leona groaned. Maybe I was nervous and put the oven on too high. So we should start thinking before we keep going about how this is all unfolding. Maybe thinking back to the passage we read prior to this one. Talk about the plot, think about the conflict. What is the problem right now? She's not only having an inner conflict with herself because she doesn't feel as confident, but now she was trying her best and she followed directions, and something that she's used to making, that she's good at, is turning into a disaster. So think about that. All right, and let's go to the last page, page 57. All right, here we go. Leona glanced at the countdown clock on the wall. Luckily, she had time to try once more. She double-checked the oven temperature and whipped up her pastry at record speed. But 20 minutes later, she was faced with the same sad lump. When the countdown clock buzzed, she had no choice but to bring her failed dessert to be judged. When Leona reached the judging area and saw the other contestants' dishes, she felt even worse. There were beautiful pies, sky-high layer cakes, and sugar-dusted cookies, and they all smelled amazing. Chef Fiore walked from dish to dish, tasting each one. Scrumptious, he exclaimed after a forkful of cake. Divine, he said after a spoonful of pie. Leona was the last in line, and she could barely stand to watch Chef Fiore taste her creation with a disgusted look on his face. Now this one, said Chef Fiore, is totally gross. But then Chef Fiore's face broke into a wild smile. He grabbed Leona's hand and hoisted it into the air. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a winner. Leona glared at Chef Fiore. Is this some kind of cruel joke? Absolutely not, he said. Then he turned to the audience. Let me fill you in on a secret. That mystery ingredient is guaranteed to ruin any recipe. So I know that the only one who actually used it is Leona. The rest of you broke the rules and you're all disqualified. Leona, next time you'll be hosting this show yourself. And at the top, I'm sorry, I forgot to read the reading guide before we started this last page, but what does Leona do or say in this section that reminds you of Ling from the Emperor's Test? So we were starting to compare that on the second page. And how would you summarize the events of the mystery ingredient? The message, moral, the teaching of these two texts can be very similar. So if we're going to compare them, how are Ling and Leona alike? What do they do that makes them alike? And maybe what character traits can you talk to me about, think in your head about, that makes them alike? Because they both seem very honest. They follow directions, but they also have a huge passion, right? So Ling never gave up. He kept planting that seed, watering it, trying to take care of it, hoping that it would come back to life. And even she tried to make her first pastry that she knows comes out great all the time with the mystery ingredient the first time. And then she says, let me try again. You know, that speaks about their grit and their passion. So I hope that in your head and in conversation in class, we can talk about some of these questions in the reading guide. And there will be a few questions that you will most likely answer on a Kahoot. Okay, so again, one of the questions is to go back and find textual evidence about how Ling and Leona are alike. And then how does the Emperor's Test and the mystery ingredient relate, and how is it similar? And then talking about the plot and the summary, okay, think about how they are similar, and also about the events, the sequence of events, how are they similar? So we're really comparing both the Emperor's Test and the mystery ingredient. So I hope this was helpful. I hope you enjoyed that. We will use this video and the questions, and maybe we can converse about it in class, but I will see you in class the next time. Have a great day, 8th grade.